And we are back with Senator Doug Jones. Doug, I want to ask you some questions that I'm going to ask both you and Coach Tommy Tuberville if he comes on. What past or present politicians or public servants do you look up to the most, and why?
Well, I think my old boss, Howell Heflin, because he was a man of the people. He was somebody who would not only go around and talk to folks, but would listen to them. That's what he taught me the most. Listen. Heflin was an advocate for agriculture. He was an advocate for civil rights. He was really one of the early politicians in Alabama that actually reached out to the black community, which was about 25% of the population in Alabama right now, and was an advocate for civil rights and equal rights and for justice. But he also was able to talk to those Alabama farmers and the folks in rural Alabama about their jobs and about their kids and their kids' education. He was a strong proponent of the military defense and helped begin the process of building up Alabama's defense, which I am now, as a member of the armed services, trying to carry on in that great tradition.
Who would you say has inspired you the most in your life overall, and why?
Well, that's probably a couple of people, and they're all family. My dad, who we lost in December of this year, Dad was a Navy veteran. He did 2 tours in the Navy back in the 1950s. Dad had a work ethic that I cannot shake. I mean, my family gives me a hard time sometimes because I tend to work till late at night. I get up working, and it's hard to take a break sometimes. He did that for his family. He did that for his community. He was on the city council in Fairfield at one point. But he always taught me those basic tenets of treating people with dignity and respect, and treating the people that work for you with dignity and respect, treating all people that way, but to also work hard and to make the most and take care of those around you, and that the rest will come. And so I looked up to my dad, and I got to say, my mom was right there with him every step of the way. She was a stay-at-home mom. David, they dated for 2 weeks in 1949, literally 2 weeks. Were set up on a blind date, dated for 2 weeks before they got married, and he took her back to Corpus Christi, Texas, with him in the Navy.
What national issues do you see as being the most important to tackle over the next 4 years?
Well, I think we've got to get this virus under control right now. I mean, that is going to be, I still believe that come January 20th, when a president is inaugurated, January the 3rd, when the new Senate it takes office, I think that's still going to be the most pressing issue. We may be on the verge of a vaccine. We may have something we're already distributing. I worry that our health care is being politicized too much, and I've tried to do my best not to do that. So I really believe that's going to be the first issue, because if we do have a vaccine, then we've got to make sure that that vaccine is distributed and distributed fairly. It doesn't just go to the wealthy folks around Alabama or around the country. We get it into the rural areas. We get it to the farmers. We get it into the Black Belt. We get it into folks who need it as badly as the folks sitting in Jefferson County or in Mobile. So I think that's going to be a challenge. And after that challenge, I think we're going to have to start rebuilding our economy. Yeah, the stock market is doing pretty good right now. In fact, it's back where it was. But there's just so many people in Alabama and across this country who don't have stock portfolios. They want to get their jobs back, and our unemployment is still going to be there for a while. We need to make sure that we've got an economic engine. It's why I've been promoting healthcare manufacturing to try to bring jobs back into this state and into this country.
Why do you think you're the better equipped person for the job?
I think because there's a lot of reasons, David. Number one, I am from Alabama, and whether or not people like to think that Democrats don't really represent the values, we do. People don't realize that I'm a pro-business voting record. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is a pretty conservative pro-business entity, gave me their top 3 awards this year for bipartisanship and for protection of the free enterprise system. So all of this word about protecting from socialism is a red herring. It's not going to happen because you got people like me and you got so many others up there doing that. I've represented and I've listened to people, and I've gotten down in the weeds to talk about issues. I listen to folks, and I've gotten down the weeds. If you listen to Tommy Tuberville, he never talks about issues. He never talks about what he would do as a U.S. Senator except support President Trump. He says he will always have President Trump's back. Well, the difference between the two of us is I'm going to have the people of Alabama's back, just like I've had for the last 2.5 years. It's not going to be that I'm always going to have a President Trump or a President Biden's back. I'm going to have the people of Alabama's back. And if you look at my record, the bipartisan bills we've passed and the other things that we've done, that's just going to set us apart. But also just the knowledge base. And also, let me say this too. People really need to look at Tommy Tuberville's experience. You know, you can look at my record. It's fair game. Somebody needs to really look and ask him some very serious questions about that hedge fund that he and one other guy started that defrauded investors out of millions of dollars. His partner went to prison. The Ponzi scheme that he invested in. When you're talking about judgment and taking care of Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare, you need to talk about judgment and getting down in the weeds to understand how to protect it.
And you've broken with the Democratic Party on some major issues. I mean, you supported the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act.
Right.
You also broke with party on the assault weapons bans.
Yep.
Why did you think it was important to do those things?
Well, it's because it's what I believe, number one. You know, the abortion issue is a difficult one, and I respect everybody's opinion on that. That's a really deep issue that people have to be concerned about. And it is something that has been used as a political wedge, and it shouldn't be. My view on that has been to try to find the common ground, because the one thing that we can agree on, I think everybody can agree on, the one thing that we should be doing is trying to take steps to reduce the number of women who face that difficult choice. And that is what I've been trying to do in the United States Senate. Despite all these crazy ads that you're seeing that went way, way too far and made things just almost impossible, this is also a women's health issue. It's a children's health issue. We need to be looking at it that way. So I broke on that because of what I believe. It is my again, coming from growing up in Alabama, it's just my beliefs. On the gun issue, that's really an easy one too, because guns are important around here. I'm a Second Amendment believer. I've got a whole gun safe full of guns because I love to hunt, I love to shoot, and so I believe in the Second Amendment and not just taking people's guns away. This business about Democrats wanting to just take your guns away is absurd. What we do want and what I would like to see is reasonable restrictions that will make sure that bad guys can't get guns and that law-abiding citizens can. It's that simple. Don't believe anything else you may hear about me and guns, or else come up here and visit me and I'll show you the gun safe that I've got.
I think Americans are largely frustrated with congressional gridlock. What is your opinion on obstructionism in Congress right now, and can it be fixed? You were talking earlier about how some people have reached across the aisle, and I know that you've actually co-sponsored some bills with some Republicans. Is it fixable, or
Yes.
are people so locked into, if you're not with Trump, you must be against everybody else, or maybe if Biden ends up being elected, the same thing on the opposite side?
Now, David, it's fixable, but it is going to take some political courage for people to do that. I've been speaking about it ever since I started running for this office in 2017. We don't see a whole lot of profiles and courage up there right now to do those things to try to fix the problem. And you've got Senator Mitch McConnell, who is nothing but a political power grabber. That's all he does. He does not put bills up for debate. We have very little debate on the Senate floor these days, unlike what we were talking about earlier when I worked for Howell Heflin. But what he does do is take some far-reaching things that he knows are not going to pass, that would never pass under any circumstances, but put it on the floor to make Democrats take really tough choices and stoke the fire of partisanship. And that's just not a way to do that. So I'm hopeful that in the future, what we can get back to is what they call regular order. What Senator John McCain kept talking about getting back to, regular order, where bills are debated on the floor of the Senate, amendments are offered, but you've got these incredible debates, and you just take the votes. And I think if people would do that, you can get back to a better place in the United States Senate. But the fact is, David, and again, I want to remind folks, It's not just a few bills that I've sponsored. I've sponsored probably 200 to 300 bills in the United States Senate as a co-sponsor. Mostly, I mean, 90% of them are bipartisan bills, and even those bills are not seeing the light of day on the floor of the United States Senate. They're just sitting in McConnell's office, and it's just unconscionable the way he runs the Senate. But it will take some political courage for a new majority leader, be it Republican or Democrat, to have the political will and the political courage to just start running the Senate the way Bob Byrd and Howard Baker and others ran a while back.
Now, you've made fixing health care a theme of your campaign. What are the specific things you think can be done in the next few years to improve in that area?
Well, I think we need to fix the Affordable Care Act and not destroy it. The Trump administration and the state of Alabama right now is completely trying to destroy what's left of the Affordable Care Act. And that is going to hurt people that have pre-existing conditions, which is about 900,000 people, I think, more or less, in the state of Alabama who are under age 65 that have a pre-existing condition. It'll do away with the mandate so that they have insurance. I think we need to give states like Alabama the incentives to expand Medicaid again. David, we've lost billions of dollars that we could have had in this state because for political reasons, purely partisan political reasons, our state refused to expand Medicaid when they had the opportunity. Now we've got it. Now they really don't have as much of the money during this pandemic. So we've got to give the states the incentives because that will not only bring federal dollars into Alabama, but it will lift the health of people in Alabama. We need to make investments in the people's health, just like we made investments in businesses.
So the last question I want to ask you is, and if Coach Tuberville comes on, I'm going to ask him the same question. And it's the most obvious question everybody asks. For Alabama voters who are still on the fence this late in the game, why should they come to your side of the fence?
I think they need to look at my record. Look closely at my record. Don't just listen to either mine or their 30-second sound bites. Look at the record and see what all I've done for the state of Alabama. Look at how we spent a year trying to eliminate an unfair military widows tax that people had tried to eliminate for over 20 years. And it took Doug Jones, working with bipartisanship with Susan Collins and others, to get it. I was the leader of that. Look at what we've done for farmers, for teachers, for nurses, for all over the state, how we've treated everybody in the same way and found that common ground, that know that I've got their back. And you compare that with Tommy Tuberville, who didn't even live in Alabama until about 18 months ago, by his own admission, didn't vote in Alabama in 2018, voted in Florida. He's got a big house at the beach. Came to Alabama just simply, in his words, to always have President Trump's back. Well, folks, I got to just tell you, President, I'm there with him when he does good things for Alabama. I'm not when he's not. But the fact is, you need somebody to have your back, because every now and then, this president does some things that are not in the best interest of the people of Alabama. And you don't need a rubber stamp up there. You need somebody that's looking at the issues, digging into the weeds, representing you, listening to you, taking that back to Washington, D.C. That's what I've done, and that's the record. I'll always have the people of Alabama's back, David, just like I've had since January of 2018.
Senator Jones, I really appreciate you being on the show with us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Doug Jones.
Thank you, David. It's always great to be with you. It's good to see you.